First, we're going to load the Logic program, or app as they call it now. And we click on that, and it will load Logic Pro 10. Then click on File and click on New. Okay, and that will open a window and drop down a dialog that says software instrument, audio, drummer. This is going to create a track for us, and it just wants to know what type of track it's going to be dealing with. We are going to put in an instrument. It'll be a software instrument, and just accept everything it says here and click create. Now I'm going to be writing a piece for flute and harp. I know that right now, so I'm going to change the number of tracks to 2 tracks, and I'm going to create. And you'll notice these 2 instruments come up. This window is kind of bogus, so just close it out by clicking on the little X in the top left-hand corner. So we now have 2 tracks. One is going to be for the flute, one is going to be for the harp. And you'll see over here another window, another strip or column, and that is the informational column. That you'll see the little I up here, and it says inspector. I think of it as information, inspector. And when you click that, it disappears. You get more real estate by getting rid of it, but you're really going to want that inspector for dealing with writing with the mouse onto the staffs. There's another hidden window up here, and that's the library, which is going to be important to us. In fact, it's rather important to us right now. You can open that window and close it by hitting the Y key on your computer, or clicking on this little file drawer up here. Let's open it. Right now we have these 2 instruments. Now I want this one to be a flute, and I want this one to be a harp. So now remember, it could be piano, and in the score I could just mark it as flute and harp. But the nice part of writing music in an app like Logic is that you get a chance to hear what it might be close to sounding like. So we will assign these instruments. So let's click on instrument 1 right now, and let's go over to our library, and let's click and go to Symphony Orchestra in that submenu, Jam Pack Symphony Orchestra. I'm assuming that everybody, maybe I shouldn't make this assumption, that everybody has downloaded the essential sounds and all available sounds. And if you open your manager, you'll see what you have downloaded. You'll see all of these are installed. When you get the app, you should let that happen. And there are things that all of these things I've loaded, I've let it all load. Okay, the world is incomplete. I hardly use those. So I recommend that you let those all download. So I'm going to Legacy, Jam Pack Symphony Orchestra, and I'm going to go to Woodwinds, and I'm going to go to Orchestra Flute. See it there? And the second you click on the orchestral flute, you will see it appear in the track. And if you enable the record button and play your keyboard, you will hear the flute. Now, I want to make the second instrument, so I will select him right now. I want to make him a harp. So I'm going to go back to, I know there's one up in this orchestral thing. Good idea is to just try all the instruments someday. Just sit and play through all of them. It'll take you a while, quite a number of them. I remember there's a harp here. I'm going to click on harp, and now, as you can see in our track, we have that nice pretty little picture of the harp and the picture of the orchestral flute. Okay, so now these 2, and let's play the keyboard just to make sure, and enable him. Nice. Okay, so we've got those 2 instruments. We now have what we want. We can now close up the library, and I'm just going to hit my Y key, and that buys us a lot of real estate. Now, what do we do with the writing? Well, first of all, there's nothing on these tracks. We have an empty tracks here. And when I have nothing, I have nowhere to write something. So I could record with the keyboard, but that is not the point of this tutorial. I am going to create a small track right now by right-clicking. Right after this track, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to hold it down and click Create Empty MIDI Region. And it's going to create a 1 measure space to write. I know you're wondering, well, where do you write? Where do you write? Well, give me a second. I'll show you. And if we do the same thing after the harp, create empty MIDI region, it's going to also create a 1-bar area to write or to compose. Now, I'm going to be composing far more than 1 bar. But for right now, for our purposes, let's put the mouse over these little boxes. You go to the end of it. That symbol means when you click it, it will repeat this as a loop. So if I drag it and drag it, you're going to see it creating those little, what look like little 1-bar guys. That's looping. We don't want that. So be careful of that. Command Z, I undid it. I'm going to use this tool. See the one that looks like a bracket with 2 arrows? That's the one I'm interested in. And I'm going to click and drag that over to 17 bars. Give myself 16 bars worth of stuff. Same with the harp. Get the right tool, not this one, that one, and drag it over. Okay, now I've got my music paper. Well, where is it, you ask? Okay. Go to one of these guys, either one, really doesn't matter, and double click. And you will see, this, by the way, is called the arrange window. It's the way you arrange your tracks and all of those things. And there are folders available, but right now, that's way beyond what we're trying to do. So you now see down here a piano roll version of whatever we write in here. And to see more of it, let's put the mouse over this bar and drag it up. And that just gives us more room. Now, you're not going to write in this area. You could. But this area is represented by the keyboard. You can see in this area, you see the 3 stripes and then the 2 black stripes. So that's the keyboard sideways. This is C, C sharp, D, E flat, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, etc., etc. And this is middle C here, and this is high C, and whatever. But you were interested in the score, which is right here. So click on that, and you will see that right now we have the flute part is here, and the harp part is here. Okay. Now, if we select the harp part, you'll see it change to selected here. And if I click on the flute part, you'll see it selected here. Or if I click on the harp part here, it'll open up the harp part. And if I click on the flute part, it'll open up the flute part. Now, right now, the flute part, it's awfully large. We would like to make this all a little bit more reasonably smaller. So go over to this tool, this little button, and drag it over to the left. And you'll see as you drag it, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. We can really make it infinitesimal. But let's bring it out to reasonable. All right. Now, this is the flute, as you can see. Now, if you want to see both, there's a number of ways to do that. Basically, click in the above the area, double click, and you'll see the other one pop up. We now have our flute and our harp. Now, the flute, it's on a grand staff. We really don't want the flute on a grand staff. So if you click on one of the clefs, you'll see over here in the inspector that it comes up with a style of piano. Well, we could write the flute on a grand staff. It doesn't matter, but normally we don't. So let's click that and look at our options. We don't see flute here anywhere, but the flute is written on a treble clef. So let's let go, and now the flute is on that one. Now the harp is written on the grand staff. Good, so we're pretty much set with that. We have our 2 instruments. We're ready to write on it. Now my piece happens to be in the key of F major, so there's a B flat. But let's look over here. The minute you click on here, you'll notice on the guys up in the arrange area, nothing over here looks like it's meant to write music. But when you click on the clefs over here, all of a sudden in the inspector, you start to see, oh, look at my notes. And look at, it says here, all of these are menus for various things we would like to put in our score. Dynamics, pedaling, key signatures, crescendos, decrescendos, dynamics, text, rests, tempo marking. So it's all here. Right now I have the notes selected, which includes the notes, the triplet notes, and the dotted notes. My piece starts in the key of F, so let's click on the key signature. That's the 4 flats you see here. I'm going to click on the F for F major. I'm going to click on it and hold it, and you'll see it drag. You'll see a little guy here. It says insert key signature. Now notice right below it, it says position 211. I don't want it there. I want it at the beginning, 1111. That means the first measure, first beat of that measure. The other two ones are subdivisions. So I let go, and bang. And obviously it doesn't write it in measure 1, it writes it in where we would put the key signature. And the time signature of my piece is 4/4, but if I wanted to make it common time, I would go up to my key signatures. You see it right here. I mean time signatures right here, and you can see I can actually put in a common time symbol. I would grab that, drag it over, and again insert it at 1/1, and it changed the 4/4 to common time. All right, now for the fun part. And by the way, I'm looking right now at my harp part. I'd like to start with the flute. And notice it was global for the flats and the time signature. So I want to start my piece with a 5-note F, and F on the first bass of the G clef. Now I can't select, when I click here, I cannot select a 5-beat note. And you're thinking, well, I bet you're going to pick the whole note and then pick a quarter note and tie it. Well, not exactly. Logic is actually smarter than that. We're going to take our whole note and we're going to click on it and drag it over to the F. Now you're hearing it as I do it. Be careful where you put it. It's on the first beat of the first measure, as you can see. It has a length that's almost a whole note. And the lengths, we'll talk about that later, but they will have a bit to do with the way the note appears. And it's on channel 1. I'll explain that one later too. And the pitch is F4. Let go, and we're good to go. But as I said, I wanted to make that a 5-beat note. Well, how do we do that? Well, a couple of ways to do it. First of all, can we put a quarter note here and tie it? Well, no. That's not the way logic works, unfortunately. Or fortunately, when you see how this happens. I can increase the length of the note from here. This is in the inspector. It shows you everything there is to know about that note, okay? How hard it was hit, the velocity, by making that less and clicking on it, you'll hear it's very soft. And by making the velocity greater on that note, I'm clicking and scrolling up and down. Or I can just type a number in. Let's make it 70. Fine. Hit return, play it again. You can hear significantly louder. And the pitch is F4. You can change that from here. The MIDI channel is 1. We'll talk about that later. That's not important now. To make it 6 beats, though, I mean 5 beats, I could increase this, which is really 4 beats long, to a 4. And that would make it the 1 beat long, and you can see it down here. It turned to the 5-beat note. But let me introduce you right now to the piano roll, which seemed useless to you before, but actually it's very useful. You see the note we just wrote? It originally was entered as a whole note this way. You can see the bar lines up here. First measure, first measure, third beat, second measure, third beat. I wanted to increase it by 1 beat, so I can literally drag that over, and it does make it the 5-beat note we wanted. Now, the next 3 notes I want are a G, an A, and a C. Now, I can drag those in again from here and just drag the quarter notes over, but let me show you something you'll be using all the time if you want to use the mouse to write music. These 2 little guys here, right here, the arrow and what looks like a pencil. This is the tool that the mouse is at any given moment. Right now we have it selected as the left click tool. I mean, the left click tool is now an arrow. That's what we select things with, okay? And the right, and the guy over here, the command click tool, is right now a pencil, but it can be many things. So, right now, I would like it to be a pencil. And what does command click tool mean? If I put it over, you'll see command click tool. See it there? That means that when I push the command key down, you have 2 of them on the Mac keyboard on either side of the spacebar. When you push that down, this will turn to a pencil. And whatever is selected over here, whether it be a key signature or whatever, or a text, it will write that where you want to. Right now, the quarter note is selected, so I'm going to write 3 quarter notes. I'm going to write a G. I'm going to click. I'm holding the Command key. I'm going to click, and it's a G, and it's on the 2nd beat. That's good. Then I want an A on the 3rd beat. Pretty good shot. And I'll do one that I know is not right on the beat. I want a C next. I'll do it. Okay, too high. I got to move over to the C. And now I'm going into the 3rd bar. I got to move it over. Now it's on the 2nd measure, 4th beat. Perfect. Okay. Okay, you saw how I did that. Now I want to enter another whole note. I want to actually enter a note that's 6 beats long. So I'm going to start by holding my command key and writing the B, natural. Okay, that's the B flat. There we go. I dragged it up to B natural. Now I want to make him 6 beats long. So what do? I don't play with numbers. I don't like doing that. I go to my piano roll and I drag him over 2 beats. Okay? And now take a look. It's exactly what I wanted, my 6 beat note. Now, that brings up a point of your work flow. You notice I'm going to the piano roll, I'm going back to the score, I'm going to the piano roll, and going back to the score, because the piano roll is really useful. So the way I generally work is I make this whole arrange window by grabbing the bottom corner and dragging it over. I make that a bit smaller. Okay, I can still see everything I want to. I can make this clef a little smaller. Although I like it bigger when I'm writing notes, to be honest. And what I do is I go to the window. See window here? Window. And I open a piano roll in a separate window. And I move him over here. And this is what's really neat about this guy. And to get a little extra room, I drag this over to crunch him up a little bit so I can get more of this window. All right. And you can close him up a bit. That's it. And put him over here. I have 2 monitors, and this is why I have 2 monitors. But I have to do this right now on 1 monitor. Now notice when I select the note over in the score editor, it selects the note over here. Let me shrink this up a little bit so we get more here. So that way, if I wanted to make this guy 5 beats, I don't have to noodle with this. I can just come over here and drag it down to 5 beats. Okay? So this is a great working environment to write music in. Okay, now what am I going to write next? This then goes to a half note G. Well, we'll get the half note. I'll hit my command key and write a half note with my pencil tool, G. It's on the 4th beat. And again, if I had missed it, I can drag it around over here. So if I had have accidentally put it here, and you can see what a mess it looks like up on the score, I can move that, grab it, and move it up here. And it's a G. Then the next phrase I want to write here goes da 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 dum. Then da 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 dum. It's going to be the same phrase except with an A at the beginning. So this is and a lot of music repeats, so it's great. We can just select these notes. Okay? Just that much. I'm going to copy drag. Now, this works like most other programs. The Option key, when held, allows you to drag things and place them somewhere else, and they get copied. The Option key, or Alt key, as some people call it. So I hold that down. I'm gonna drag it over to measure 5, and just make sure that first note is an F on the 1st beat of measure 5, and it is. Oops, I let go at the last second. Well, that's okay, because guess what? I can just drag it over in my piano roll and get it right on the 1st beat. And look what it looks like. Isn't that beautiful? Now I want to make this F an A. All right, well, that's simple enough. Either in this editor or this editor, I can just drag it up to A. Making sure it's still on that 1st beat of the 5th measure. And there we go. We see it reflected over in the piano roll. Now, I have enough of this. Let's add in a little harp, because that brings up one of the things about notation here that uses that MIDI channel we talked about. Remember on the flute, when I clicked on a note, it showed us it was on MIDI channel 1? Okay, so let's go to the harp. The harp is going to be a polyphonic instrument. I'm going to put an Alberti pattern. It's going to be the F, the C, the A, and the C, F, C, A, C, twice as 8 notes. So let's get the 8 notes. And I'm going to write them in using the technique with the command key tool being a pencil. So I'm going to hold down the command key. Got my 8th note selected. I'm going to put in an F. Okay. That's a little high. Okay, it's on the first beat. Good. Then I'm going to put a C in. Now watch where it puts this C. But you see what it did? It put it up on the G clef. It's correct. It's the note I want. And you can see over here in the piano roll that it's the C right here, C4. Okay. And I want it to go da 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 dum. So what I'm going to do is to save myself a little time. Let me move the playhead. By the way, you can move the playhead around from any window right now, and you can set it to start anywhere that you want it to. Okay, it can get in the way sometimes though. So I'm going to copy these two guys. Okay, and I'm going to drag them over to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th beat just to save a little note entry time. So I'm going to hold Option and drag. Okay, that's on the, there we are, second beat, thank you, good. Then I can drag all 4 over to the 3rd beat, and that would save me some time. This copy and drag stuff is great. Then you go over and we put that on the 3rd beat of the measure. That should be the guy. That's the guy. But my Alberti bass pattern doesn't go F, C, F, C, F, C. It goes F, C, A, C. So I just have to drag this guy up to A and drag him up to A. Okay, up, one more. Come on, up we go. Okay, that's why I generally have this a little bigger on my screen. All right, if we take a listen, you'll see we'll drag our playhead back and we will listen to this. Okay, you can hear it sounds really good. Now I have a long 4-beat F here. Now, how can I get that F in there? Do I have to go over and click here and go over and get a whole note again? I really don't. Let me show you a little thing. I'm going to drag the F from here over. I'm going to Option, drag, and I'm going to put them on F3 on the 2nd measure, 1st beat. Okay, there we are. Then I'm going to go to my, I want it to be a whole note, by the way. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to grab it in the piano roll editor and drag it over for the 4 beats, and now I have my whole note. Didn't have to diddle around with using the pencil tool. Let's address the problem here because I really want this. I want these C's down here. Now let me explain what's going on. Do you notice that the style for this clef was piano? Okay. What that style does, the piano style, is it takes any notes, and any notes that are middle C or above, it writes on the G clef, and any notes that are below middle C, not including middle C, are written on the F clef. I want the notes written where I want the notes written, and I want all these written from here. So I'm going to go up to a style called Piano 1/3. And you'll notice all of the notes end up on the G clef, written from the perspective of the G clef as though there's no F clef available. I, of course, want all these down on this clef. Now, what did the 1/3 mean? Okay, well, if we click on the F here, you'll notice that it's on MIDI channel 1. If I click and make it MIDI channel 3, look what happens. It forces it down to the bass clef. And if I make them all MIDI channel 3, they're all going to end up on the bass clef. But there's a quicker way to assign that. Rather than clicking on each one and going up here and making it MIDI channel 3, the quickest way is to go to our little buddy, remember our old buddy, the command click tool, and we use it for a pencil? Let's just for a moment change it from a pencil to the voice separation tool. And I want all of these notes, all of them, to be on MIDI channel 3, so they're down here on the bass clef. When I hold this command key down with the mouse here, you'll see it comes up to a split, a thing with 2 arrows. If I click it, it'll say to separate 1 from 2. So I'm going to draw a line above these notes And they all went down to MIDI channel 3. Click on any of them. You'll see they're all on MIDI channel 3. That's the way I wanted it to look. But this is a polyphonic function. For example, if I add another whole half note, and this is not in the piece, but I'm going to put it in. So if I put another note in, like a half note, and I put it on MIDI channel 1, watch what happens. Right there. You see, he's on 1, so he's fine. He's on his own thing up here. These guys are on MIDI channel 3. They end up down here. If I put him on MIDI channel 3, he's going to end up down here too, and he's going to cause a little bit of confusion. I will show you what the confusion is. 3. See what happened? It put it down here and made it an eighth note because it's really not an eighth note. You can see over here it's still the half note, but it gets very confusing. So we'll work with that later. But basically, that's how I do it. This piano 1-3 allowed me to have 2 possible places to put notes, on the bass clef or on the G clef, okay? And they could be different kinds of notes. All right. So let's move on with our fantasy here. I now want to have this da 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 da, and I want the same basic figure here, but this time I want it to be an F and a B natural, a G and a B natural for the Alberti pattern. So again, I'm going to copy this, all of it, because it's going to end on that F again, and I'm going to Option, click, drag over to the F again, and it's going to be on 3-1-1. See it up there? 3-1-1-1. You can be fooled by where you've dragged it. Always look at that number. Okay. Now, the only thing here is I want these 2 notes, the C and the A, to be a B natural and a G. So let's start with the C and move him down to the B natural. Good. And then let's grab the A's. I'll grab them by holding the shift key down and selecting them both and dragging them down to the note G. Okay. Now I've got what I want. That's exactly what I wanted. Let's start the playhead here and hit the space bar to play. Now in this one, I want this guy again, so I'll drag him back over, and we can do this forever. We can also command copy and then command paste. That gets a little trickier, but you can experiment with that. So I'm going to put this on 5-1 right there. See the 5-1-1 F3? Good. I didn't screw that one up. Wonderful. Then we've got, oh, here's another tip. To start at the beginning of the track, you can click go to the beginning in the transport bar. That'll put your playhead at the beginning, okay? But if you want to start randomly somewhere, and this is one that, boy, I had to buy a whole course to find this one out. You hold the mouse over the clefs, a clef, not in between, and hold the Option key down. It will turn to that double arrow guy. When you click, it puts the playhead there. So you can place it anywhere you like. But be careful. If you don't have the mouse over the actual 5-line staff, it turns to a magnifying glass, and I've made the mistake of clicking on it before, and it blows it all up, and you have to reset all your sizes again. So, but it's a great tool because you can start anywhere. Okay, now that you see it now scrolling across, and if I write a 100-bar piece, it's just going to keep scrolling to the side. So, Jeff, what's the deal with like putting it on a page? All right, well, that depends. This is set right now for what's called linear view. This over here, the one furthest to the right, is page view. And you can see that now turns it into a page. Well, Jeff, what are the dimensions of the page? Well, that's determined up here by the page setup. Right now we're set up for a US letter, okay? So this is a US letter size page. Here, I'll shrink it down so you can see the whole page. There's the page. That's what we've written so far, okay? Well, Jeff, I don't like it. I don't want it to be orchestral flute. How do I change the name? Well, that would be up here in the track. Just click on the name and type in just flute, and now that changes this, okay? You can build by adding instruments. You could build the whole symphony orchestra. Start with the flutes, go to the oboes, the clarinet, the bassoons, add those in. A new track, it might even ask you how many you want. you add another 12, let's say, and you say create, and boom, there they are. You just have to basically go down and assign an instrument to each one of them. Oh, that's another thing. If you wanted to move these tracks around, you can. Grab the harp, drag it back up to where it had been, and you're good to go. And how do you delete a track? Click on it and hit delete. Just keep hitting delete and bye they go. Okay, so I hope you got something out of it, and I'll be doing the next one, which is basically how to enter with the keyboard using the metronome, and then the subsequent editing, because for notation. Remember, that's what we're doing right now. We're talking about notation, not performance. So, till next time, be good.